welcome to the Snafu conference. So, for those of you I haven't met, I'm Robin. I'm so excited to welcome you here today. I'm going to be doing a little shtick, which is different for me. Normally, I'm on stage doing a little bit of MC at the beginning, introing a keynote. And instead, because I wanted to build interactivity into the flow of the day, I'm going to be doing a little bit of intro, and then a little bit of a session, and then same at the end of the day today. First, though, some context. By show of hands, how many people here have been to Responsive Conference? Well, thank you. More than half the audience, yeah. So for the last 10 years, I've been running a conference called Responsive, about the future of work. It was started as a manifesto, as just a written statement of beliefs about how work was changing. This is more than 10 years ago, back in 2014. It says things like, the rate of change continues to accelerate, and the future is increasingly hard to predict. These truths we now take as self-evident. We are living in a world that is moving at insane, rapid change, and we're needing to figure out how to adapt and how to thrive amidst that. And so one of the questions that has come up a lot in the curation of Responsive Conference has been, what about the individual? If Responsive is about the future of work, it's about how organizations can stay resilient, what can individuals do? And particularly in this world where AI is making things faster and less predictable than ever. And so I'm no expert in self-promotion. I'm no expert in sales. But over 10 years of running Responsive, I've gotten good at asking people questions and curating on topics that are of interest to me. And so, thus Snafu. It started as a newsletter 3 years ago. So every week I write a 1,000 to 2,000 word article on some of my own experience, some of other people's experience, but on how do we keep pace to change, and increasingly on a skill that I've found is increasingly useful. We're seeing in tech, for example, a lot of go-to-market, right, which is some form of selling, of gaining attention in this increasingly fractured attention economy. And so Snafu, for you who don't know, comes from a World War II acronym. This is Private Snafu, which was an educational character throughout World War II. But has come to, as we kind of know, mean small misstep, small mistake, what I think of as the building blocks of learning. But originally was an acronym for situation normal, all fucked up. And during World War II, they used this to describe the bureaucracy of war, the bureaucracy of government, and what I think of as the bureaucracy of human behavior. These things that we all do, that anytime you put more than 2 people in a room together happen by default, and that's the normal. And so I started writing this newsletter as an experiment for myself to practice the skill of writing and to learn about influence and persuasion in this chaotic world of work. I'm a student, not a guru. I'm here before you today as a curator and as a host, but as somebody who's really profoundly interested in what can I do to stay robust, to stay resilient in a world that is constantly and every single moment evolving. And I've had some very interesting, very personal experience with this over the last 18 months. On Monday, I got married. It was a stretch, but she gave me permission to show our photo on stage. And over the time, first that we were dating and then we were engaged, it was really interesting to hear my partner tell her story. Because it was something like, I came to US from Morocco, and I've been stuck at Intel for the last 9 years. So on the first day, it was like, so you went to Johns Hopkins, it said in your profile. Yeah, I did my undergrad, and I guess I also did master's at Hopkins. And then on the third date, so wait, you just said data science in 2020, you didn't get your master's at Hopkins in data science in 2020 because you got it earlier. Oh, well, I got a secondary master's degree from Georgia Tech because I was bored during the pandemic. And it went on and on like this, including recently as we were helping her prepare for job interviews and practicing telling her story the way I hear it and the way I see it, not the way she has typically told it, which is in a very short soundbite. And we all do this. We all tell our stories in the smallest version of ourselves, in the way that doesn't attract attention, that doesn't promote who we are and the incredible natures that each of us have and the stories that all of us have. So, persuasion, storytelling, influencing other people's behavior has lots of parts. We're going to talk a little bit about storytelling towards the end of the day, and I know it's woven into a lot of our speakers' sessions throughout the day today. As I've conducted interviews in the last 3 years, these are just a few of the parts. Behavior change, the attitude that you're coming in with, storytelling, the art of asking, flexible goals, getting over rejection, and so many more. But as I've looked at my career and what's worked for me, and something that I've experienced the best salespeople and the best inviters, the people that when you spend time with, it feels like gravity, do, it's this one. It's service. That when you show up in service, you are fundamentally incapable of being manipulative, of taking advantage of people. And so that if we can practice what I strive to do when I come on stage, which is be hospitable, to be of service, then perhaps we're taking a little step towards telling our story, towards helping others, and towards representing a more full picture of ourselves, whether that's in a job interview or in building your startup or in any endeavor that requires influencing other people's behavior. So I've got 3 stories for you and 3 exercises. It's maybe a cheap ploy to show just adorable pictures of my wedding and of me at 5 years old. But I was really fortunate. At 5 and 6 and 7, my dad took me outside and said, we're gonna plant pumpkins. And it required a lot of work. As a 5-year-old, digging furrows and planting pumpkin seeds and then nurturing these pumpkins until in October, I had full-grown pumpkins. There we are. We're going to put them out, and we're going to put a little red tin out, and you're going to offer these pumpkins at whatever price you want. I had to figure out pricing, and people are going to leave money in exchange for these pumpkins that you've grown. One of the clearest memories from that time, one of the sweetest moments from that time, was a bunch of my neighbors. My neighbor down the street, Isaac, came up with the idea that we would dress up in scarecrow costumes. And not little adorable boys in scarecrow costumes where you can see that there's clearly a person. These were, my mother's an artist. She went full to town, complete no skin showing, hay coming out of our arms and legs. So we would just stand there completely stock still for hours. And when a car would drive by, this way, and cars would stop and roll down the window and be like, is that a robot? Is it motion sensitive? And the other of us, whoever was not dressed up in a scarecrow costume, would run after the car and be like, have you seen? There's this pumpkin patch right over here. You should come and get some pumpkins if you need pumpkins for Halloween. And I just remember that attitude of joy and of enthusiasm. Because when I think about me at my best, when I think about who I am as a salesman, which sometimes I am in fact a salesman, doing it well comes from that place of enthusiasm, that place of delight. And so as a first exercise, what I want you to do, you can spend a minute by yourself, just jot it down on your computer or on a piece of paper, and then we'll take a moment to partner up and share, what is your authentic attitude of self-promotion? We all have that sense of what it feels like to be the opposite of that. But what is yours? If mine is truly enthusiasm, delight, as a 5-year-old or even today, who are you? What are you feeling when you are at your best? When you are the most persuasive, the most enthusiastic, the most of service, what is that emotion? What are you embodying internally? We're going to take just a couple minutes, and then I'll have you partner up with somebody and share. All right. So turn to the person next to you. And if you're not next to somebody, I think you probably can figure it out. Maybe scoot your chair over just a little bit. Ideally, maybe turn to somebody you don't know. And take a minute sharing in both directions. What is yours and what is theirs? And if you haven't already, trade. So whoever was sharing, the other partner is going to share. All right. And then come back to the room, which does mean that you're going to have to stop talking to your partner. I promise there will be more. Oh, you're all so good. We'll have more time. You can make it up in the next round. You're all so good. I normally have to chase people to get them to stop talking. Thank you. A couple shout outs, and I'll repeat them. Yours or your partner's. What did a couple people share? You can just shout it out. Curiosity, possibility, invited in, invitation, seeing them. Yeah. Confidence, confidence, uh, caring or kindness. Yeah. Connection. Great. Humor. Oh, I love humor, right? I can't be playful while judging myself or judging somebody else. Pride. Nice. Yeah. Preparation is another one I think of there. Of like, if I've done my preparation, there's not a lot of room left over for anything else. This was my first job out of college. I was fancy and I didn't call myself a personal trainer, though that's what it was. I was a movement coach. And it was the first time I got fired. So I lived in the Mission District in San Francisco, and there was a bodybuilder's gym. And I grew up a runner. In college, I did a lot of dance and gymnastics, self taught acrobat, among other things. And I walked into this gym and they said, sure, get some clients and you can be a personal trainer here. Everyone gets into personal training because they want to help people get fit. Nobody tells you that in order to stay in personal training, you have to sell. And gyms are extremely sales heavy environments. This was, you can think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can think of 1980s like Pump magazines. They legitimately had men in loincloths oiled up in front of the mirror every Sunday flexing. I did not fit in. But for a week, they let me walk the floor. I taught a 5 a.m. step aerobics class every morning. I had never done step aerobics. And then the rest of the day, at my own hours, I would walk around the floor. It's very much the opposite. I'm looking at the Kavanaghs, who are going to be coming on stage later, of relationship-based selling. This is walking the floor and saying, hey, I'm a personal trainer. Would you like to get some personal training sessions with me? You better believe if that felt uncomfortable for you, it felt even more uncomfortable for me. And so on Thursday, the manager of the gym pulled me aside and said, you have been here a week. You have 0 new personal training clients. If you do not have 3 clients by tomorrow afternoon, you are fired. I got fired. But something interesting happened afterwards, over the next couple of weeks. I was driving my parents' candy apple red Toyota pickup truck down Valencia, and I saw a guy holding his back, kind of like walking, a young guy my age. And I parked the truck in the middle of the street and jumped out of the car and ran up to him and said, hey, you look like you're in pain. I'm just getting over a neck injury myself. I'm a personal trainer. Can I talk to you? What's going on? Maybe I can help. The next person I met was at the UCSF locker room. I was swimming in their pool, and the guy at the counter said, what do you do? And I said, I'm a personal trainer. And he said, great. My name's Mike Light. I'm a photographer. I looked him up. He's actually like a world famous photographer. I'm looking for a personal trainer. What do you do? And he ended up using movement coach. He was like, I don't have a personal trainer. I have a movement coach. But when I think back to those personal training days, we've all felt, maybe raise your hand if you felt on either side of the equation, that slimy reach of somebody, somebody who wants something from you and is asking for it very unclearly, and it feels nasty, right? That's what I was doing when I was a personal trainer at that gym. And then the opposite of that, when I was walking down Valencia and I picked up that client who I ended up working with for the next 5 years, 3 days a week, right? It's an attitudinal difference. And so the next exercise is, when is one time you felt slimy? And what were you doing? And when is one time you felt good? And what were you doing? And this can be hiring an employee. This can be selling a client. This can be some element of building a business or talking to a family member. But when you were trying to influence behavior and it felt bad, when is one moment? Start there, turn to a different partner, if you will, and share one time when you were trying to influence somebody's behavior and it felt bad. We'll take 2 minutes. Appreciate you all finding a new partner. There's some logistics involved.
I've seen that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Somewhere on here, put your website before, like in the next 20 minutes, because I want to not just acknowledge you, but put the word on it more. Yeah. All right. And then you're going to trade with your partner, and your partner is going to tell their story. Partner, when is one time that you were trying to influence somebody's behavior and it felt slimy? And now between partners, what were you doing? What were you feeling? Oh my goodness, you're all so great. Thank you. What were you doing? What were you feeling in that story where you felt slimy? What was the attitude? Back to the first question. What was the attitude that you were holding? That it felt clawing, that it felt gross? Okay, we can do shout outs. I was going to have you share, but this is great. Self interested. Yeah. Somebody else's agenda. Wanting to impress. Desperation. Scarcity. Inauthentic. This is great. You all, I normally have to like pull. Great. More? Change what we did. What do you mean by change what we did? Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. So kind of going against what you actually knew to be true. Nice. So back to your partner. We'll take another 3 minutes of a time like me on Valencia or in the gym locker room where you were trying to influence somebody's behavior and it just flowed. It just worked. So share that story or a story there, if you will, with your partner. And trade with your partner. If you haven't already, trade with your partner. All right. And then come back to the room and shout out, if you will, what were you doing differently in this setting where it just flowed, where it just worked, where influence didn't feel like pressure, it just happened? What were you doing internally? What were you feeling? What were you thinking that was different? Curiosity. Your theme of the day, apparently. Making a connection. Yeah, connecting to somebody. Collaboration. Another form of connection. Yeah. Talking about something you love. Yeah. Yeah. I have a version of that, which is falling in love with the person, right? It's really hard to feel slimy if I'm truly loving the person that I'm with. Relatability and inviting people in, dropping assumptions, being clear about my boundaries. I think boundaries is a really under-addressed piece of influence. We can come back to that. Being helpful, giving over getting. Yeah, and it's okay to get, but if you give even more than you get and you focus on that, great. Helping people see their problem. Yep. Yeah, so being a mirror rather than maybe a black hole. So the third business story is the story of Robin's Cafe. In 2016, on 3 weeks' notice, I opened up a restaurant. How many of you have, well, first of all, how many of you have worked in service? Food service? Oh, everybody. My goodness. Great. Yeah. Tough business. How many of you have started your own business? Startup, consultancy? Look around. Yeah, interesting. How many of you would call running a business easy? Great. We all want to open up a cafe, a restaurant, for things like this. For this was, I think, week 2, there was a flamenco party, and we served margaritas. We had a beer and wine license, and it was great. I mean, good margins on alcohol, but more than that, community gathering. But most of the time that I was running Robin's Cafe looked like this. And usually I would have one of those chairs down and I would be eating leftover quinoa salad at midnight and a half-empty bottle of wine, looking at today's numbers or the 3 employees who no-call no-showed this week, or the homeless encampment down the street that had broken a window in our building, all of the challenges that came with running that restaurant and wondering why I was doing it. And I had to keep coming back to this question of who do you serve? And not just me. It's my business. For God's sakes, I put my name on it. It's called Robin's Cafe. Or really, the first place, the way that I started the cafe was I wanted to try building a responsive business, a little brick and mortar in the Mission District in 2016 that lived in service to the people who worked behind a counter. But that by itself wasn't enough. I also wanted to be of service to the changing nature of the Mission District. I'd lived in that neighborhood for 10 years. It is a historically Latino neighborhood, and tech was just starting to move in. There were a lot of locals who had lived on that street in the warehouses, kind of turned apartments for decades. There were the dance moms who would bring their kids to ODC, which was our landlord, a 40-year-old nonprofit. There were the employees of the nonprofit. There were the investors, the people who had trusted me with their money. I borrowed $40,000 in order to buy the assets to start up the restaurant, never having raised money before. And then, of course, our customers, serving 3 meals a day, having a third space, trying to make our margins off of coffee and avocado toast and stay in business so that they had a place to come back to. And when I can go backwards, maybe. When I was feeling this dark, and this image always reflects for me those dark moments of the soul, and it's midnight, it's outside, and it's like, why, oh why did I get into the restaurant business? I would come back to this list, and I would think of specific employees. I would think of specific people associated with our landlord. And those were the reasons that I got up the next day and tried to do it again. And so when it comes to promoting ourselves, when it comes to trying to influence somebody else's behavior or trying to influence our own career, our own business, I think it's really useful not just to say I'm in service to whom, but how many people can I be in service to? So we're going to take another 3 minutes to list out, first for yourself, I think it's actually really useful to write down for yourself as many specific humans as possible. Not abstract, oh, my customers benefit, but like Brenda Way, the owner of ODC, benefits. Monty Barnes, my first employee, benefits. When Robin's Cafe did well, who are the people who benefit? When you excel in your career, when your startup manages to make another hire, who are the people in your life? That mentor who has always looked at you and now looks at you with pride, or that mentee who looks up to you and saw the way that you self-advocate and now they're going to take that next step. So write for just a couple of minutes a list of people who benefit when you do well. If you're not done yet, that's fine. We can take some more time with this with a partner, but you can turn back to your partner. It can be the same partner as last time if you like. And share a few of those people. Tell them about those people. Give those people a little bit of life and color. Who are the people who benefit? And trade with your partner if you haven't already. Make sure both of you get a chance to share a little bit. Okay. Who wants to share some of your own? Who are some of these people? Say it again. Who in community? The people within the local government that you serve. Yeah. Like the people that your local government serves, the community of the local government. Yeah. Family. Yeah. Any specific family members you want to call out? Spouse and kids. Yep. I do have one of those now. Ooh, I like that. Right. So not just your clients, but the people who are in their families. So when they change, their families see that impact. Yep. Nice. Yep. Yep. The team around you, the people that you work with day to day. Yeah, Adam. One of the first events I ever ran in 2016 was pre-responsive conference called Design for Dance on the intersection of dance and behavior change, founded by BJ Fogg at Stanford. My producer ended up marrying and has been married for the last 10 plus years to one of our speakers. And like, you can't track that. You can't get credit for that, right? But the connections that happen as a result of people coming together or bonds forming. 100%. Yeah. I often think about sales as bread cast across the water, right? You just throw out goodwill and you never know what's going to come back. But as you say, karmic credit, it always comes back. Other people who benefit when you do. Yep. How many people saw Eldra Jackson III on stage at Responsive Conference 2025? He works with Eldra and Inside Circle. Yeah, seriously. A couple of others. Two books that I recommend about service. These are actually books about changing human behavior in the guise of hospitality. I gave setting the table to every single employee of Robin's Cafe. So that was like several hundred employees because, you know, after 3 days, they decide they don't like restaurant business. But hopefully, again, bread across the water was useful. Danny Mayer is the founder of Union Square Cafe, Union Square Hospitality Group, and then the Shake Shack empire. His protege, or one of his proteges, is Will Gadara, who took over 11 Madison Park and turned it into legitimately the best restaurant in the world. So Unreasonable Hospitality builds on Setting the Table. They're both books about hospitality and about service. And I think they're really powerful places to start the conversation of how do we show up in service to others. So I'm going to leave you with that question. Who do you serve? We're in business for lots of different reasons. We build companies, startups, consultancies. We freelance for lots of different reasons. But ultimately, if you can really clearly delineate who do you serve, I think you've taken a really pretty profound step into authentic sales, authentic service, and what this day of Snafu is all about. I have some housekeeping. Parking can be validated at registration or at the OMCA front booth. You just tell them you're with the Snafu conference. And I think that takes like $10 an hour to $10 a day for parking in the garage. There is lunch from 12 to 1:30 just up the ramp in the garden. And there's a couple of surprises coming with lunch as well, as is typical if you know how we run events here. And then the Wi-Fi is just the open museum. The flow of the day, pretty straightforward. I'm going to be here on the main stage morning. We're just completing that and the evening. We're going into breakouts. So that is here, down the hall in the California room. That's next to the open space with the big wooden statue in the middle. And then the Women's Board Lecture Hall, which is just further down the hall on the left-hand side. Then we go into lunch, and then there's another round of breakouts, a pause, another round of breakouts, and then we conclude the day here. The full agenda is on the back of your name tag, so you can scan that QR code or join snafu.com/agenda. And with that, I'm going to send you into break. Thank you all for being here. I can't wait to spend the day with you, and I will see you in sessions.